Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, there goes a very fun and very exciting video for you guys today. That is because Valve has announced the release of Half-Life 3 for 2026. All jokes aside, damn it, don't you wish that was true? But in the meantime, we have Half-Life Element 64. If you're wondering what that means or what that is, it's basically a team of modders taking the world of Half-Life, stripping it all of the story, and turning it into more of a boomer shooter from the 90s that we all know, love, and remember. What I really love about this, outside of the fact that it completely changes up the gameplay for being in the same genre, is that Half-Life still gets all these amazing modifications that make you want to jump in and play the game all over again. Before we get further involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we have a Patreon link down below as well. But if you're wondering what Element 64 truly is, it basically is a new way to play a game that is absolutely amazing. It is more of a shooting gallery here, a lot more of a classic kind of boomer shooter style, with a lot faster action, a lot less health and ammo, and way more intensive gunplay. And even though the original Half-Life had some intense shooting action going on, no question about that, something like this just kind of makes it feel more in line with every other game coming out back in the era. Now don't get me wrong, the fact that Half-Life was different than everything else meant that it was Game of the Year that year, and is still considered one of the best games, not just first-person shooters, but video games of all time. Valve was definitely doing the right thing. But because Half-Life exists and you can play it on basically any platform known to man, something like Element 64 here is just a new fun experience. Because trust me, you're not going to be getting any story here. There really isn't any motivation to play this game as far as Gordon Freeman is concerned. You are just here to rip and tear like a Doom Marine, except in the world of Half-Life. And I really do think this does work. The levels are good, the layout's been streamlined, and you're basically going to have a lot more corridors, giving you that corridor shooter feel. You will definitely get some open arenas and some boss fights as well, but for the most part, the pacing is going to be completely different than the original Half-Life. And I definitely think that works, and honestly, getting more Half-Life is always going to be a good thing because, again, at least the recording of this video, Valve has not announced a Half-Life 3. But honestly, I have this very sneaking suspicion that you might actually see an announcement for Half-Life 3 soon, because there's definitely a lot more rumor and chatter on the internet right now about Valve announcing that before the end of the year. Now, of course, that's been the case like 5 or 6 times now, that Valve was quote-unquote definitely going to reveal Half-Life 3 soon. But honestly, this time feels a little different, but that could just be me lying to myself, hoping that we do get that Half-Life 3 announcement, because I absolutely love this franchise. I loved Half-Life Alyx, and I want to see what happens in the world of Gordon Freeman after the events of Half-Life 2 and the 2 expansions, because it's definitely still left on a cliffhanger. The one thing I hope if Valve actually does release a Half-Life 3 is they basically wrap the story up there, because I don't want another cliffhanger waiting around for another generation to come to see a Half-Life 4. Although knowing Valve, it'll definitely work exactly that way. If you haven't noticed already, these levels definitely lead into different areas in completely different manners, giving it more of that boomer shooter vibe. And I'm totally glad that that's a genre that is back now, because I loved all these first-person shooters back in the 90s and early 2000s. I played absolutely every single one, whether it was a console release or more specifically a PC game, because I did a lot of my boomer shooting back then on PC, even if back then it was just called a shooter. And it is one of those things that has more of an arcadey feel. If you know me and you know the channel, arcade games are absolutely some of my favorite, and a good boomer shooter basically emulates that same arcade vibe, except in more of a full gameplay experience. Believe me, comment down below and you tell me, of all the boomer shooters that are out recently, which one has been your favorite. I would be curious. And depending on when I actually publish this video, Blood Refresh Supply is either already out and I've done a review, or will be out soon, and I'll have a review the minute the embargo lifts, because we're not only getting experiences like Element 64, we're also getting remasters of old games as well. But again, I just love how this is basically paced up. You have a finite amount of ammo, a finite amount of health, so in some ways it kind of feels like Half-Life, the survival horror game. If there is any game that I think would actually have a good pivot to the survival horror genre, I do think it would be something like Half-Life. But trust me, I understand that a survival horror Half-Life is not essential, the same way that something like Element 64 isn't essential, which means that the things that we don't need can sometimes be the most fun. So if you're a developer out there, make me a Half-Life survival horror game. I'd love to see it. But a soundtrack sample one time, get an idea of what the music is like in Element 64, and then after that I'll come back and talk more about the mechanical changes of the overall gunfire and gameplay, because trust me, even though it doesn't appear that much different on screen, it feels completely different when you're playing the game. I mean, Half-Life now has levels that you complete with basically a loading zone at the end versus the full kind of open traversal of the original Half-Life. But you will see that the one thing about this port, or at least this overall mod to the original Half-Life, is going to be that sometimes the aspect ratio and text size don't really adhere to the resolution that you're running the game in. But honestly, there really isn't any information there that you need to see. Just go ahead and smash enter like it owes you money, and you'll be able to get to the next level. And that really is the fun thing about the levels and the architecture. Basically everything takes place in a hub world. You're going to unlock new areas to go to. And again, if you've ever played Half-Life as many times as I have, you probably have the entire layout of Black Mesa kind of memorized in your head. I feel like if you actually drop me in there in real life without any of the pitfalls or enemies, I could walk from the beginning of the game all the way to the ending going to Zen just based upon my own memory. And that is why something like Element 64 is so intriguing, because it changes up the architecture. You're going to see familiar places from Black Mesa in the game, but they're not going to connect in the same way, and they're not really going to function in the same manner, because basically all the interactivity in the game has been removed here. Your entire goal is to just shoot anything that moves to try to help Gordon Freeman survive. And I will say in some of the later stages here as well, it can definitely get slightly difficult in all the best ways. A big thanks to Andy D for helping with the captures this week as well. I sent him this because I know he's a massive Half-Life fan, and I figured it would be a fun time to get a second person's opinion of the game as well. You'll see here as we get further in, more of the bigger enemies are going to show up, so the difficulty is definitely going to start ramping up in a lot of good ways. But again, I just love something like this because it really goes to show that creative people can take a game that's existed forever, that everyone has played, and do something completely new with it. And trust me, the lineage of something like Half-Life mods is absolutely rich, basically since the beginning of the game actually launching all the way till today. There's been hundreds upon hundreds of mods to the original Half-Life, but there's something about changing it up to a boomer shooter that I think works especially well. And just leave it to fans to make more Half-Life, because again, Valve seems to be absolutely allergic to the idea of doing that. Now don't get me wrong, Half-Life Alyx is absolutely one of my favorite VR games to ever play. It just makes me want more of Half-Life. Considering this franchise is so massive, it's always surprising that Valve doesn't really go back to it all that often. But they must be doing something right, because there really isn't a quote-unquote bad Half-Life game out there made by Valve. Half-Life, Half-Life 2, and Half-Life Alyx are three of my favorite games ever made. So maybe Valve's ability to kind of just wait and be patient until they have something they think we're gonna love is what keeps this franchise truly alive. Because I can't think of anything more disappointing than getting Half-Life 3 and it only being a quote-unquote decent game. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me, if Half-Life 3 does come out, what would you like to see it do? I would be curious. As we navigate more around the world of Element 64 here, you're definitely going to have to pay attention to different areas. You're going to have to jump up on things to get supplies, because sometimes you're going to be really low on resources, and you know that there's some enemies around the corner, so you kind of have to play the game a bit more strategic. Because I would say in the original Half-Life, ammo definitely was plentiful. Let's do another soundtrack sample, 45 seconds or so to get some gunshot sound effects, and I'll be right back with just a little bit more Element 64. Now the fun thing about something like Element 64, at least as you're watching it here, is this is just a demo. This is an active in development process and it's going to get bigger. You're going to see more levels come in, more enemies come in, and everything else. I do love the fact that you get zombified actual Black Mesa employees here as well. It's one of those things, fans just get absolutely wildly creative with stuff, and this one definitely shows a lot of promise. I feel like by the time this is done, you're going to have a full first-person shooter experience in the boomer shooter genre in the world of Half-Life. And again, you can love or hate the term boomer shooter. I think it's kind of funny and kind of describes the overall vibe change between the 90s and early 2000s versus what we have today. But it's one of those things, everything old is new again, and now suddenly the market is flooded with boomer shooters, and I feel like a lot of them are going to fail and people are going to stop making them, so we're going to end up losing it again. That is just my opinion, but it's one of those things. When old trends become new, everyone jumps on the train to try to get a little bit of that profit taste, and when it gets oversaturated, people just basically back off and find the next new thing. But hopefully the boomer boomer shooter is around for at least the next few years. We've been getting absolutely spoiled with some awesome entries, and Element 64 definitely is one of them. And in this instance, no one's really worried about profit because this is a free modification. So long as you own the original Half-Life on Steam, you're going to be able to download it easily and mod it right into your game with like 2 clicks. And I will leave a link in the description below to the Steam Workshop page as well, so you can go ahead and grab this entire thing because trust me, you want to be playing it. And if you're wondering, boss fights do exist in the world of Half-Life Element 64, they're just going to have a different feel to them, and that again just 100% works. This overall demo shows a ton of promise, and I can't wait to see Element 64 get completed because it's definitely something I want to jump back into and play more of. You leave me your thoughts down below and you tell me, is this something you're into or is it something that you might skip over? Honestly, I just want to talk about this one because 1, I love Half-Life, 2, I love boomer shooters, and 3, I have this sneaking suspicion that maybe Valve's going to announce Half-Life 3 sometime for 2026. But we're done. We're going to keep getting Gordon Freeman here to the goal, and I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.